Hello, this is Johnny Cycles of CyclesGaming.com here with my wrap-up for my Gruul Hydra Tribal deck that I just ran through a league in Modern. Overall, our record was 2-3, which, I had higher expectations, honestly, based on our practice matches and the kind of decks we were beating and the kind of power and synergy of that we saw with the Hydras. However, in general, Gruul Jank that I play, 2-3 is about average. I do think that we saw some underperformance out of this deck. Definitely hit stretches where we saw the risk of playing this sort of early game setup. Half of so many of our cards are dedicated towards either some form of ramp, and then the other half are finishers. So you can draw the wrong half and only see the one half, and your deck kind of doesn't do a whole lot. And that's what we saw in some of our games where we just had all the setup but none of the finishers. We also saw we stumbled on land a few times. So, I mean, there was some luck factor that went into that record, I think. The other thing that I guess was a bit surprising, other than not going like at least 3-2, but going 2-3, the way we went 2-3, going into a league, you think, okay, well, I did all these practice matches, didn't see a lot of the top tier decks, saw some of the top 2-ish tier decks, a little bit of the tier 1, but you expect the real top level decks in a league. And that's not even what we saw necessarily. We did lose the Recto Scam. Not too surprising. I mean, you can watch the video. The hands they had both games, the way they drew, just I don't know. I think we lose those games all the time. I mean, you can't just get double thought seized into what we saw our opponent put on the battlefield, and then same thing with seconds in this. Not the exact same thing, but it was 2 thought seizes in game 2. In game 1, it was just double grief. After us. Anyway, you can watch it. We stumbled a little bit, but our opponent just had hand disruption and 2 threats into removal both games. And that's the way the deck's built. They certainly hit all the answers they needed the entire 2 games. But other than Rakdos Scam, I mean, we played the new Grixis Tibalt Jace deck. We beat it. Then we ran into Burn of all things. Haven't seen Burn in so long, but I definitely am not ready for Burn in the sideboard. And it was a close match. It was very close. That was an example of not having any finishers with all of our setup, and then in game 2, our opponent getting just the exact 2 cards that they needed to finish the game before dying, being Boros Charm and any 3 damage spells. So it was very frustrating there to lose. I mean, I expect to lose to Burn a lot with this deck since we really aren't game planning against it in any way. We have to race it, and it's hard to race Burn with Hydras. And we almost got there, so it felt like it was one against Burn that got away. We could have gotten that match. And then we played Mono Blue Tron. Like, first of all, Tron, you see it in the friendly free games all the time because I guess people really like it, but you don't see it much in leagues because I don't think it's that competitive anymore. But our opponent made it look good, and we saw one of the drawbacks of playing 1X spells. They're weak to Engineered Explosives as well as Fatal Push, but they're also weak to Blast Zone. So we got blown out by those 2 in both of our games that we lost. We got blown out by those cards. It's possible we could have played it a little bit differently to avoid getting blown out, but at that point, our opponent, I think, had like 9 cards in hand from the One Ring when they blew us out with Blast Zone in the second game. So yeah, we lost to 2 decks that really aren't on the tier list of decks that I expected to see in a league. And then our last match, also not a deck I expected to see, but one I'm super excited to try myself, which was Gruul Desert Rattleworm, Colossal Rattleworm. Our opponent got to do their thing in game 2, but we got their games 1 and 3. So we ended up with a 2-3. Like I said, I had a little bit higher expectations this time, but honestly not too surprised. I think this is, again, anytime you're playing janky Gruul decks like this that are looking to go big, you're probably going to get a 2-3 or 3-2. You might end up with a 1-4 or a 4-1 occasionally, but overall the average I think is right around that 2-3, 3-2 zone. So we're right at that average. I wish I could have performed a little bit better. I wish it hadn't flooded as hard as it did in some games and struggled in others to find the right cards at the right time. But we have those practice matches to watch where you can see how the deck really comes together. And we had a few games where the deck did come together for us. And you can see at times we were just 1 draw away from winning and finishing out the game, and we just didn't get it. So the deck's competitive, super fun, super synergistic. I write a lot about my fears and concerns and how it turned out. Yeah, I mean, there's high risk, high reward playing these 1-mana X spells. They scale up so nicely that they can finish a game off, especially with the Ozolith out there. If it has a few counters, they can finish a game off out of nowhere, but they're susceptible to a lot of removal, unlike the 5-mana dragons. Pelucranos, I mean, it's a good filler card. That's one card that is a flex spot, I think. Do we want other Hydras? Do we want more removal? Do we want something else in that spot that isn't a Hydra that synergizes somehow? We could go up more Planeswalkers to get the full 4 of each. We could go up another Bone Crusher. But I like having that 3-mana beater. It's possible we want a third Pelucranos and one less Mistcutter, but Mistcutter is really good when it's good, and even when it's not, it's a hasty threat. We saw how it gave us one more threat to help punch through damage in the last game of our last match. Sideboard, I mean, again, if just depends on the meta, right? If Tron and Burn are making a comeback, I would definitely change a few things. Well, Tron, I think we're okay against. Alpine Moon could be a Blood Moon. We didn't see any graveyard strategies for Endurance really. Didn't see any Affinity or Go Wide strategies for Brotherhood's End, but they're there. They're out there. So yeah, I mean the sideboard is always going to be tweakable and work in progress. As far as the main deck, there are a few other Hydras that you could slot in here to see how competitive they are. Definitely interested in trying a blue-green Hydra deck or maybe a Teamer Hydra deck. That'd be pretty fun. But for now, I'm really happy with this deck. It's super fun to play, very competitive, lots of synergies, and just swinging out with gigantic Hydras is so much fun. It's so sweet, and yeah, it's basically, I want to throw this in, I haven't done the math yet, but it's basically a budget build, right? You take out the one Boseiju. I have to check this, and I'll put this in the article on cyclesgaming.com that will go up later today. And even these Endurances and Force of Vigors have gone down in price significantly, but they might, between these 6 cards and the Boseiju, I think we may be at like $120, $150. If you take those out, or even just the Boseiju, I bet you this is under $100. So if you want a competitive deck that's super fun to play, that can get you a treasure chest every now and then, catch your opponents off guard, do some really fun broken things on a budget, then I would recommend this Hydra deck. But for now, I'm going to sign off. I got some articles to finish, some lunch to eat. I got to get my son from the bus stop pretty soon. But I really appreciate you watching. Click that subscribe button on YouTube, please. Everybody counts. For cyclesgaming.com, this is Johnny Cycles. I'll catch y'all on the next one. This has been another edition of Keeping Modern Janky with Johnny Cycles. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my website, cyclesgaming.com, for original Magic the Gathering content. You can read about my Commander decks or my Janky Modern brews. My latest article is about the Zombie Precon and its effect on Commander. I give you a couple different deck lists. If you're interested in a science fiction / fantasy novel, be sure to check out my book, The Podkind. I'm publishing it serially, a couple chapters every month. Again, thanks for watching. Check me out on YouTube, Johnny Cycles. Click that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it, and I'll catch you on the next one.